Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is our third Lunch and Learn webinar, and we're excited. My name is Chris Delaney, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Communications here at Cobb EMC. And I just have a couple of housekeeping notes for you. Please know that all of you as attendees have your cameras and mics on mute. So if you can type in your questions into the chat feature for each of our presenters, I'll read them out to them after each of their sections. And please make sure that you stay on the webinar until the very end for a special drawing. Today, I just want to introduce our speakers quickly. Our first speaker is Tico Jones, and he is on our Education and Community Relations team. He'll be talking with you about safety around electricity. Lieutenant Lee Matthews from the Cobb County Fire and the Cobb County Safety Village is supposed to be joining us, but we're having some technical difficulties. So we may have someone from our team come in and read his slides about safety regarding natural gas. And then Kelsey Daniels, who is our Vice President of Information Technology here at Cobb EMC, will be talking to you about online and cyber safety. So as I said, we'll start with Tico. And if you have questions for him, please put them into the chat and we'll ask our questions of each speaker as we go. Thank you so much. Tico, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chris. Well, once again, I want to thank everyone for coming on and enjoying this another summer learning series. So my name is Tico Jones, and I want to talk a little bit about electric safety. So of course, we know that electricity is very powerful, so we must respect it. So I just wanted to give a couple of facts starting off about the electricity. That we know that Ben Franklin discovered the electricity back in 1752. Of course, he was flying the kite with the key that got struck by the lightning. The electricity that he actually discovered was known as static electricity. So the electricity that Cobb EMC uses is, of course, generated electricity to make sure that you have the availability of electricity and power for your lights, air conditioner, and so on when you need it. And as Cobb EMC, our electricity is generated through different varieties of plants, coal plants, natural gas. We have solar farms, hydro plants, and nuclear plants, and others that we actually use to generate the electricity. So what takes place, you can go to the next. This is a quick demonstration about how our power is transmitted. Of course, it comes from the power plant. Cobb EMC actually takes over once it goes to our number 3, the distribution substation, because we don't generate our own electricity, and we pass the electricity down the transformers on to your home. So that is just a quick setup of how electricity is transmitted for us here. A couple definitions that some people may get misconstrued about in the electric field is energize. Of course, we know energize means electricity is flowing through a wire, but the term electrocution, a lot of people always say that they've been electrocuted, but the actual term for electrocution means death by electric shock. So we all know if you're attending that you have not been killed by an electric shock, so you actually haven't been electrocuted. So, but some of the stats about electrocution is that 1,000 people die annually from electrocutions. There are another 30,000 people that are involved in disabling accidents where they're injured from the electrocution. So, but another interesting fact is that majority of the deaths occur in homes. So that is one of the reasons why I was asked to present this electric safety presentation, is just to give us a little more knowledge of what to look for and how to handle it if some accident or something occurs. So another term, voltage, is the actual pressure that pushes the electricity down through the lines. So we're all aware of like 9-volt batteries. All of our homes operate at 120 volts, but the higher the voltage, the more intense the shock is, if there is a part of the electric shock where someone has been shocked in possibility of electrocution. Our distribution lines, whether they be overhead or underground wires, they are all coming in at 7,200 volts. So we definitely always want to make sure that we stay away from the voltage, whether it be above power lines or below underground power lines. So the principles of electricity, these three principles will never change. Electricity always wants to get to the ground. Electricity always wants to take the path of least resistance. Sometimes that is through us as people, and it also moves at the speed of light. The reason why electricity is able to move through people is because we are conductors, and our body is made up of majority water, which is the largest conductor available for the electricity to pass through. With the electricity move at the speed of light, if you break that down, that's 186,000 miles per second that electricity is able to pass through. So we also have to be very careful when we're working around the house and things like that. So some outside electrical dangers that are always around, that sometimes, unless we're involved, we don't pay attention, is car accidents. If there is a down power line where there is an accident where a car may have knocked the power line down, we always want to make sure that all power lines are, or any line that is on a power pole, is considered energized, even though it may not be a power line. But unless you're trained, you will not know the difference between a power line, a cable line, an internet line, phone lines, because all other utilities use the same power poles that we use. So you always want to treat every line as if it is a power line and that it is energized. So you want to stay away from it. And like I said, if there is an accident where a power line is down and you're in the vehicle, you want to make sure that you remain in that vehicle unless there's a fire or if there's any other danger that, that could come up, because you're safer in that vehicle. The vehicle, they actually ride on wheels, so the rubber will actually keep you safe. But the one thing you do not want to do ever is to make contact with the ground, which is where the electricity wants to get to. You touch the car and the ground at the same time, because then you could be electrocuted. Transformers around your house, we know them as the big green boxes that are, if you have underground lines and if you have overhead, they are on the power poles. They are usually gray. But with the transformers that are underground, that house the underground wiring, we want to make sure that, for one, if you have children or pets or anybody like that, if you ever see them sitting on or playing around those transformers, that they stay away. You let them know to stay away. You don't want to plant any plants or shrubbery within 10 feet of that, because what that does is, as you see in the picture that we have, it makes it tougher for our linemen or anyone that is actually working on that transformer to actually get to it, especially during storms and things where it may be heavy rain. It makes it tougher for our linemen to actually work within that area there. So you want to make sure that you try to plant anything at least 10 feet away. And then you don't want to dig around the actual transformers, because of the fact that, that you do have underground wiring, and that is 7,200 volts that is running through the power lines that are underground. So if you were to strike that, you have the chance of being injured or electrocuted there. And if you ever notice a problem with your transformer, whether it be it's unlocked, whether the actual front cab of it is open, or you see a leaking oil or anything, please report that problem. The reason why we say that is because it might be a small issue right then at the time when you notice it, and you could contact someone. We'll come out and we'll fix it if it is one of ours. And it might take just a couple of minutes, small amount of time for us to fix it. Whereas if it goes unnoticed, or you see it and because you have power, you just continue to leave it as be, it could cause something that it may cause an issue that may take a longer time to fix, which may result in you and others going without power for a larger amount of time. So if you do notice anything, just please make sure that you contact and report the problem. Inside homes, as I told you, that there are 1,000 deaths that occur every year. Most of those are inside homes. There are a couple of issues that we have that generate majority of those electrocutions or injuries. And of course, the improper use of electrical cords, that is a big issue, especially around Christmas time, when we have Christmas trees plugged up and we have all the lights in the house and all. So you want to make sure that you have a proper usage of electrical cords when you're doing things like that, not overloading outlets. Another issue is, or danger is, wrong light bulb usage. So of course, if a fixture takes a 60-watt light bulb, you want to put a light bulb in there that does not go higher than 60 watts, or maybe even you can do something lower, but nothing that goes over what that fixture requires, because it may create that overload and then create a fire. And then of course, using outlets close to water, hair dryers, things of that nature, when you're in the bathrooms and you have running water or something. You just want to be extra careful when you're using those type of outlets, even though they have the GFI outlets and they're supposed to trip once. There is something that trips it. If there is an arc or something, there's still that chance that you can be injured in that. So, of course, with dangers, there are also electrical fires, and you want to make sure that you don't use water on an electrical fire. There are ABC fire extinguishers that are used, that are able to be used. There are some fire resistant blankets and all that you want to use, but just please make sure that you don't use any water on that, because that will, of course, similar to a grease fire, if you pour water on it, it's going to ignite that fire even larger. So with those dangers, you just want to make sure that you're able to, if there is an issue, that you're able to handle that issue. You're able to put it out if there is a fire or anything. And if there isn't, then you want to make sure that you evacuate everybody else, so there is no other dangers or anyone else cannot be or does not get injured on that. That is my entire presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Great. Thank you, Tico. Those were all the questions that came in for you. So I am going to hand off our gas safety section to Krista Williams.
Thank you, Chris, and everybody, bear with me here. I'll do the best I can. Like Chris said, we had some technical difficulties getting Lieutenant Lee Matthews in, and we're sorry that our true expert isn't here to join you, but hopefully I could do his presentation justice. He left us some good notes. So with that, we'll give you some tips about how you can stay safe around natural gas, something that's often in a lot of our homes. So first, natural gas is a clean, efficient fuel source for your home. You'll find it in various places if you do have gas in your home, obviously on your stove, if you have a gas-powered fireplace. It's also in a couple places you might not often think about, like in your water heater or your dryer in your, or even in the kitchen range. It's all over your home, so making sure that you're staying safe around natural gas is something that's very important. So one safety tip, if you smell rotten eggs, you need to go outside and call 911 and call your utility provider immediately. Something that a lot of people don't know is that rotten egg smell is actually not something that's naturally occurring within natural gas, but rather it's added to the lines so that if somebody smells it, that's a very telltale sign for them to know that they're experiencing a natural gas issue. If you do happen to smell that, again, you want to get out of your home immediately. Definitely don't smoke, use your cell phone or landline, or operate any electrical switches, because that could quickly cause a fire if there is indeed a natural gas leak in your home. And once you get outside, call the experts, have them come out and check it out. It's always better to be safe than sorry. So if you do have that occur, make sure that you use the proper protocols to ensure that you and your family are safe. The next tip that we have is to regularly maintain all of your natural gas appliances. So again, you always want to be on the safe side. So if somebody can come out to your home, a natural gas contractor, and properly maintain all of your equipment, make sure it's operating efficiently, and contact your natural gas provider, and they'll be able to give you a list of some contractors who could help you with that service. It's also important to clean your air filters regularly and replace them as needed. That will also help with the efficient use of electricity in your home, as a side note. And make sure that you're keeping space around your furnace clean and clear. Again, you don't want any potential fire hazards there. It's also important to have your furnace inspected as well. And again, this all goes back to proper maintenance of equipment to ensure that you and your family will be safe. Next, we recommend installing a carbon monoxide detector in your home. And you might be saying, oh, well, I already have a fire detector, but carbon monoxide is something different. And oftentimes it's odorless and it's invisible, but it can be seriously harmful to your health if it builds up indoors. So having a carbon monoxide detector, in addition to your smoke alarm, you should have one installed especially in your bedroom to alert you if there's any sort of dangerous conditions. That way you can have somebody come out there and address that immediately. Next, during heating season, this is a great time we would recommend to have a qualified technician come out to your home and do some checks for things. So, service your unit, investigate if there's a risk for carbon monoxide, making sure that everything you're having in your home is up to date and before you're using the equipment heavy during that time of year when it's cold outside. Just as another reminder here, you'll never want to use stovetop burners or ovens to heat your rooms because that's not their designed use case. You'll want to use your furnace for that purpose, and you'll want to make sure that that furnace is well taken care of. Next, these pictures can look kind of scary, but it's to show the very real threat of gas fireplace burns, and they're a lot more common than you think. So when it's cold outside, a lot of people will rely on gas fireplaces to heat their homes, but those injuries can happen anywhere. They can happen with your fireplace. They could happen too from your stove if you're not careful, because the natural gas is very hot. So what we have on here is a stat from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and they report that over 1,700 toddler burns happened in the US since 2009. And this number is actually considered low because the National Burn Database only requires incidents of burns to be reported over 5% of the body. So that just tells you how prevalent this is, that they think that number is underreported, especially for young children. That leads us to our next slide, which is about fireplaces and kids. So a couple things on this one. First, gas fireplaces are installed at the perfect height for your kids. So with their natural curiosity, they might want to get close and touch the fire. And of course, we know from fire prevention safety that that's not what we want them to do. So it's important to start talking to your kids when they're very young about the dangers of fire and natural gas. Secondly, toddlers are unstable in walking and toddling, so you'll want to make sure that you have as much protection around that fireplace as needed, baby gates or what have you, to prevent them from getting too close. We know that when children are less than 2 years old, they don't even have all of the reflexes they need to pull away fast enough if they are near a hot surface. So it's even more important to keep them away and to always keep an eye on them, especially when the fireplace is lit. And lastly, gas fireplaces get a lot hotter than we think. So the stat on there, they can be anywhere from 500 to 1,000 degrees in temperature, and that's enough to cause third-degree burns in less than a second. So again, use extreme caution when you're using natural gas to heat your fireplace in your home. Kind of switching gears a little bit, another tip that we have in regards to natural gas safety has to do with outside of your home. So just like with sometimes there being underground electric lines, there's underground natural gas lines as well. So we always recommend that you call 811 before you do any sort of digging at your home for, a home improvement project, if you're going to be doing some landscaping or adding a new fence or deck. It's a free service to use. It's available nationwide, and it's a toll-free number. And, again, it's better to be a little bit more proactive on the front end so that you can have peace of mind when you're going to do your next improvement project. So just know that that's a resource that's available to you. And finally, we have a word search. So this is a fun activity, especially if you start talking to your kids about natural gas safety and the different things that they can do to stay safe. So when we send out the presentation, you'll receive a copy of this so that you can play along and try to complete the word search. So with that, that's everything that we have on natural gas safety, if there's any questions.
So at this point, I will hand off the microphone to Kelsey.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to share with you a topic I think everyone can relate to, and that's cyber safety. And it's whether you're at home or at work or even out doing things during the summertime, you have your phones with you, all that's considered part of cyber safety. So walk with me, and I'll go to the next slide and talk about what we'll do next. I chose this slide, and hopefully when you look at it, it takes you off guard. And that's how we should always be, and that is on guard. Because no matter what time of day it is, there's always midnight somewhere else in the world. And usually in those creepy hours of the day, those different times, there's something happening. Someone's surfing the internet looking for someone to fall prey to their tactics to get control or information from you. And there's just a lot of traffic on the internet. So today I want to share with you a lot of information. I don't expect you to retain everything, but the way I've designed it is you have content, there's clicks I put in this presentation for you that once you read it and hear it today, I expect you to go back and click here and visit some sites I'll share with you as we go forward. Okay. So the overall message is no one can manage it for you totally. And we can say it, that is your specific, your own cyber safety. And there are all kinds of ways that people tend to try to hack and get into and steal and rob us of things that are personal to us, our data, information, our content, my name, my address, email, my children's name, my mother's maiden name, which is a common field we use for security questions. But from portals, from text messages and phones. And I use these three images because actually these are ways I've been actually hacked in terms of people stealing my content or trying to. I had someone actually try to log into my Social Security portal and get my information, which would have access to all of my data, my salary history, Social Security numbers, but they failed on my interrogation questions. And those questions are very unique. And I sometimes trick things up in that. Like, for example, if they ask for cars, my first car, I won't put a car's model number, I put a person's name. And I trick things up with those common questions. I've received text messages, and one thing I do is if I get a text message from someone, and usually there's no other content from them in my text field, it comes out of nowhere, and it's a question that begins like, how are you? And none of my friends know, they all know I don't respond to that. So if I don't know who you are, it's the first text message I'm getting from you, you probably won't hear back from me. And the best way to get with me first time, my family knows as friends, is to call me. I want to hear your voice and confirm that you are who you say you are. I've had friends and people I know personally that have fallen prey to phone scams. And I say within the past 6 weeks, and I got a call from someone I know, and they got a call in the middle of the night, and someone called them and woke them up. It must have been 1 o'clock in the morning. So they kind of get you off guard. They woke this person up, and they presented an emergency to them that, their mother was being arrested. They had to have money or ransom, if not, they were going to do terrible things. And who wouldn't want to respond to those things? But if you know those scams are out there and they exist, they raise your own awareness about things that are happening around us. So it's not the first time you encounter them when they happen to you. But all the links in this presentation you hear are safe links. I've checked them out myself and I've placed them carefully in it for you. So you don't have to be concerned about clicking things in this presentation. But the answer is that you're always detailed in what you do. You're always engaged about what's happening around you, all your devices, all your portals. Be cautious in terms of responding to people. Don't just quickly, sometimes think about who's emailing me, what are they asking me for? If it seems weird, let it sit there for a while and confirm offline another way that that person that's emailing you is who they actually say they are. And then be on the alert wherever you are. When I travel, I'm always looking around me. I don't dress to draw attention. I don't carry a lot of bags. I'm very inconspicuously walking to my flight, my location, my gate, and not drawing attention to me, being on the alert about things around me and keeping a very balanced life. If I do my part, I can live safely with a few areas of caution and be sure I'm taking the right path towards safety. So the message is always be aware. When you think about what happens across our networks, and whether your home network, and if you think about it, I can log into my wireless network at home. I can see my neighbors' networks. I can't log in, but I can see them. And their names are branded in the networks, and that just draws attention to them. So I told my neighbor about a month ago, I said, I'm going to join your network. And I called his network name out. And he was surprised that I knew. And I said, brand your name differently for your network. Call it something else. Don't call it your personal family name that people can identify that network with your family. But the breaches globally occur when people are unaware of threats that are happening on the internet every single day. And there are things we can do every day that will help us to be less on the radar for people, and being sure that we attack those things in the right way personally for our own personal safety. A hacker is someone trying to steal your content. They want to know all they can about you and then impersonate you to your friends, to your other contacts and your email address. So be aware of all the different tactics people use, hackers use, and all those things help you to know how you should respond and act in advance of having a threat happen to you. So the message here is understand the environment, understand what's happening around you, be aware, and then plan your actions accordingly after that. The next few slides are heavy in content, and they're not meant for consumption in every detail today, but on the left-hand side, I do want to highlight the major types of hacking attempts and approaches people use to get at you. There are viruses and worms people use, and typically you click on to a link, and then what happens is, that behind the scenes, all these things begin to happen on your PC. And sometimes you'll notice that your PC begins to run very slowly, or you can't pull up applications you could before. Sometimes they'll use things like they'll mask the pop-up menu and it pulls up, say, the Apple sign-in screen. And I had one example where the Apple sign-in screen looked exactly like the Apple sign-in screen for Apple and all that we use every day, but it was not the right one. There was one little thing on there that if you're moving too quickly, you would have missed it and then given all your credentials to someone else's out there. Trojan horses like worms, all those things are very effective for getting people to do things. Ransomware. On the next slide, you'll see things like the concept of phishing, where they're looking and attacking and looking at people specifically, sometimes in a broader perspective. There's spear phishing, where they know specifically who they're targeting, and they're targeting that person, and they're really looking at your content, and they find the right moment, and they lean in with an opportunity to impersonate you, and all your friends think that that's you. I knew a situation where even in the banking industry, there was someone in a company, and on the other side in the bank, someone actually monitored their traffic, email traffic back and forth, got the trust going, and so how they talked about details about the banks and their transactions. They consumed the actual work, that the identity of the actual banker, and then they began to collaborate with the employee. And from there, you can understand how things went south. But beyond that, on the next page, you'll see specifics about just advanced threats, all kinds of spam messages, all kinds of Wi-Fi eavesdropping. There are all kinds of things people can do. And sometimes the first step is being aware that these things are happening around you, so you can guard yourself and be prepared for how you determine your actions going forward. Next slide. So one question you might ask yourself, well, I hear what you're saying, but how would I know if I've been compromised? And here are at least 10 ways that you would see on your screen, on your PC, your devices. Now there's all kinds of devices. You got tablets, you have iPhones, you have watches, you have all kinds of wearable gear that you can put on. But each of them can be compromised in some way or another. But you can look across the screen and see different things, indicators that may tell you that you may want to look at how things are performing. So to see if you have been compromised or not. Can PC slowing down, you may be getting annoying pop-ups every now and then. You may have fake email from social media from friends that don't ask you specific questions. They're luring questions. They kind of pull you in and make you ask, what do you want? And they've got you. Now they've engaged a conversation with you. There's unexpected software showing up on your screen that you haven't seen before, and you wonder, what is that? And you click it to see what it is. And there you go. Now you're trapped in something, a scam that they put on your machine. If you notice that you're disabled, your antivirus software is disabled and you didn't do it, that's a red flag. If something seems too good to be true, I always tell people it probably is. If someone says, I'll give you $1,000 to answer these 3 questions, no, it's probably too good to be true. No one just freely gives away cash for nothing these days. There's also personal information requests. Nowadays, there are things, everyone's in the job market, and part of the job hunting process is people ask for your social security number. I always tell people, be very careful to pass out that one identity piece of information that identifies you across all verticals in your life. And so you think about it, if someone asks that question, I would say don't respond to it, talk to them on the phone, tell them that you're trying to find out clarity of what's really going on, whether it's a job hunting process or whatever you're looking at, but have a verbal conversation. Say, at the point in time when I can see you or have a dialogue digitally with you, I will disclose the details. But for now, let's focus on just the content elsewhere. There are bad spellers that you get email that you can tell the spelling is off, and your friends wouldn't write those emails, but they do that to just pull people in. There's also an unfamiliar sender. Who is this person that's reaching out to me? It seems important, but I always let it sit for a day or two. If it's really important, they'll reach out to me again. and then also false identity. So if you've seen these things happen in your environment, you can think that maybe I have been compromised. And the best thing is to get in touch with a company like I do to help me monitor my traffic and my situation, to help me not fall prey to things that I don't have to. So we live in a digital world. We can't get around that, and it's going to get even bigger and even more pervasive. And you think everyone's working from home now, and even the cyber criminals are working from home as well. So people get bored. They get bored and look for things to do, and sometimes their practices aren't that great, things we want to be proud of. But here you have in front of you things I've pulled together. I think you have at least 1, 2, maybe 10 or so links between here and the next slide, things that you can look at to see how can I learn more about it. Because again, the goal here is to raise your awareness. If you look at the first one, it says the Federal Trade Commission. It's a very well-known trusted site for more information. You click that link in this hypertext within the PowerPoint slides, so you get that, and just start reading the content. They list scams that are out there, different things folks are falling prey to, and just become aware of things that happen around you. So when you hear them, that's not the first time you're hearing it, and you can recognize that that's a scam. I'm out of here. Also, the USA.gov site has online safety tips that you can also look at how you can do things just every single day. Talk to your family members, your parents, your children, and help them to also learn. On the right-hand side, I'm a very visual learner, so I've also researched some things on YouTube from these sites that are very animated view, very fun to watch. They have a very profound message. They only last about 3 minutes, so they're very easy and fun to watch, but very powerful and impactful in sharing tips on identity theft, malware, computer tips for safety, hacked email, and also any unwanted calls you may have. And you'll also find in the context ways you can have the calls blocked with also the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, and also the USA.gov. The USA.gov site, I pulled one up for you just to get your eyes on it, what it looks like. I think it's always helpful to see it before you get out there. This which when you log into it, here's what you see, and there's a specific section on online safety, and you see that highlighted in red on the right hand side, and they've got do's and don'ts on the left hand side as well. But I think all these things will help you understand your environment, our environment, this new digital world that we're in. We love it and we also hate it at the same time, but it's also beneficial that we just understand what we're doing, what we're getting into in this world around us. On the next slide, I like to lighten it up a little bit, and I say comics are funny until they become true and something happens to you, like it did with me. I was not happy when my identity was compromised. I had someone actually apply for buying a phone through one of our major carriers under my name. I had someone to also just log in as me and try to get, but I always had those very interrogating questions that were difficult to get beyond. So I just encourage you, find out, go beyond the normal and get things at a tight way that people can't penetrate your identity, because that's you. That's the one thing you have and I have to hold on to. So the comic strips are funny. Beware of online strangers. If you don't know the person, don't respond to it. If it's that important, they'll find you. They'll call your parents or call your friends and say, hey, I can't seem to get in contact with your name, and they'll find you. But be aware of online strangers. Refrain from mindless clicking. Sometimes you're waking up in the morning, email comes in, and you're almost awake but not quite. Something comes through your email, you click it, and they might have you. So be alert. You take the time to get on your good ground and get your good footing for the day. And then in this environment, it's always good to say, I'm gonna think about what I need to do going forward. And the last one is just exercise caution on the internet. You know, there's all kinds of phishing attempts out there, and just move with caution and move with a determined effort to be sure that I'm safe along the way. A lot of content, but the purpose is not to get all of that in your understanding today. I wanted you to have something to refer to as you go back to, and not just now, but something as things evolving it more stringent and tight, you have a reference point for that as well. I did include for everyone a quiz, and the quiz is something that you can do on your own. I'm not going to walk through it right now, but the answers are on one of the slides I gave you before, and it has 3 pictures. The one that has the Social Security on it, has the cell phone, and it has the scam image on it. And the answers are at the bottom of that page, and it's the first letter of those words. So I won't say what they are, but on your own, this is a nice little quiz to take that see how test your IQ when it comes to cyber safety and things you can be aware of to help guard your future going forward. So So that's all I have, and thank you so much for all of your attention.
Kelsey, thank you so much. We have two questions that came in. One is unsubscribe to unwanted email.
And so I'm sorry, the question was once again?
Should you unsubscribe to unwanted email?
That's a good question. I mean, if you know that it's a firm or an organization or something you subscribe to already yourself. So if you actively subscribe to it yourself and say, I want to get alerts from my bank about, new programs. If you cook that up yourself and establish that connection yourself, then it's safe to do so. If it's not, I would just put it into my spam box and let it go there forever. And then I will block that sender at my firewall from ever getting into my email, because you don't know if that email that's the unsubscribe button is actually secure unless you actually did it yourself. So it's a two-pronged question. If you know it's good, it's safe to do so. If it's not, proceed with caution, and there are ways to handle it otherwise.
Thank you, Kelsey. We also got a comment that lately I've been getting so many of these emails from Amazon. It's helpful to look at the email it sent. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say just in general, as long as you're scanning email and not clicking, that's okay. And I just say, just refrain from clicking unless you're absolutely sure that is something that is going to be helpful for you. If they tend to be bothersome, again, I'd use the spam folder. It's easy. There are tools that you can say, send this sender, this domain, and move it aside. But as long as it's helping you, then it's okay. But beyond that, if it's something that's annoying or you feel it's a threat to your safety on the internet, I would block it, definitely.
Great. We have a question. If your computer has been compromised, how or do you recommend to help fix it? Specifically, it's a Mac laptop with unexpected websites popping up when Safari is open.
Yeah, I tell you, there are, and I have now in my own personal life and for our employees at COB EMC as well, we now count it as part of our just base cost expense to protect our brand and our employees, and that's how we feel personally as well. So in my personal life, what I do is I actually subscribe to, and there's several out there. You've seen them on television, but Norton's is one, 360 is one. And if you have been compromised, what can happen is once you sign up with them, they can take over your machine from a remote location. And I actually clicked on something myself. So I just want to say it can happen to anybody. And what they can do is, as with me, I gave them permission to look at my screen, and because I wanted my system fixed, I clicked on something, and all of a sudden my screen was flashing red, and I knew that I had mindlessly clicked on something, not thinking what I was doing, or just somehow got into my email stream. And they can do that remotely. So that's one way to do it. The second way is, like with the Macintosh, I would trust going into Apple. And I'd rather sit in front of someone and work with them personally. That's always the best way to do it. But in this environment we're in, we can't always touch people to help us get things done. So the Apple is one situation. I would trust to go to an Apple store. It's very secure. Of course, we're all the equipment, your face mask, hand sanitizers, to be sure you're safe in that regard. And they can help with the Macintosh. But desktop PCs and laptops, any place like Best Buy can help with the Geek Squad to get you back on your feet again with your PC.
Well, thank you, Kelsey. And now I just want to make sure everyone knows that with our current COVID pandemic situation, we have decided to have our annual meeting as a virtual annual meeting this year, since we're unable to bring everyone together. So we will share with you just a brief video about how to register for the annual meeting. Here you go. So I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to go onto our website, carbonmonoxide.com/annual meeting, and make sure you're registered for the annual meeting. It'll be on Saturday, September 17th, or Saturday, September 19th, sorry. And we are doing a series of promotions to encourage everyone to register early. Our next promotion actually ends tomorrow at 5 p.m. And if you register before then, you'll be entered into a drawing to win a $500 bill credit. So we hope that you'll, if you haven't already, go on and register before the end of the business day tomorrow. And then the next thing I want to talk about is our prize drawing for today. So 10 of our attendees from today who stayed for the duration will be winning a $25 bill credit. What we ask you to do is to type your email, your name and the name that you registered with, and your email in the chat function. If you are uncomfortable doing that because the other attendees can see that, you can send it to me in a marketing email at marketing@cobbemc.com. And if you could do that, then and we'll give you till 5 o'clock tomorrow to do that. We'll include you in the drawing. And then we'll, in our follow-up email, if you're a winner, we'll let you know. So thank you so much. We're going to leave the chat open for the next 5 minutes so that you can finish entering the drawing. We'll leave the music playing, and we hope that you'll sign up for the drawing. Thank you so much. Thank you for the great questions and for joining us today. We appreciate it. Bye.